Mama's words hung in the air like August humidity. Pack up and leave. The venom in her voice made the room shrink, walls closing in fast as a rattlesnake strike. I stood there, 39 years old, staring at the woman who'd given me life now taking away my home. My fingers clutched the doorframe of the master bedroomy bedroom for the past 3 years since Daddy passed. The bedroom I'd repainted, recarpeted and restored with $30,000 of my own money. And for what? So my perfect sister Elaine and her banker husband could have it when they moved back to Oak Ridge from Atlanta. The same sister who hadn't bothered to come home when Daddy was dying. Did you hear me, Charlotte? I want you out by the weekend. Mama, we had an agreement. I invested in this house. My voice cracked like thin ice on a winter pond. I put in my savings to fix the roof, update the plumbing. This is still my house. She straightened her back, somehow looking down at me despite being 5 inches shorter. And families help each other. Elaine needs space for the baby. The baby. The grandchild Mama had been praying for. The trump card Elaine always seemed to hold. I looked around the room at the pale blue walls I'd painted myself, the antique vanity I'd refinished, the curtains I'd sewn by hand. I gave up my apartment in Savannah to come help you after Daddy died. But Mama was already walking away, tossing words over her shoulder. You can take the small bedroom or find your own place. Your choice. That night, I couldn't sleep. The moon painted silver stripes across my ceiling through the blinds, and somewhere in the distance, a whip-poor called with a lonesome voice that matched my mood exactly. Family. What did that word even mean anymore? I'd come running when Mama called 3 years ago, abandoning my life as a librarian in Savannah, leaving behind friends, my book club, and Jeremiah man who'd been on the verge of proposing, all because Mama said she needed me after Daddy's heart attack. Just for a little while, she'd promised. Just until I get my bearings. Those little whiles had stretched into years. Years of cooking her meals, driving her to doctor appointments, and fixing up this old house room by room. The house where I'd grown up, where Daddy had taught me to change the oil in his truck, and where Mama had once shown me how to make biscuits light enough to float off the plate. You all don't understand what it's like in Oak Ridge if you didn't grow up here. This town has a memory longer than the Mississippi, and opinions harder than Georgia Clay in August. Everyone knew my business Charlotte Mason, the good daughter who came home to take care of her mama. I rolled over, punching my pillow into submission. In the darkness, my phone glowed with a text from Elaine. So excited to move back home. Thanks for understanding about the bedroom situation. You're the best big sis. Understanding? I hadn't understood a damn thing. I hadn't even known they were moving back until Mama ambushed me at dinner tonight. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "We should talk." Sleep came in fits and starts, memories churning like autumn leaves in a storm. I remembered when Daddy first showed me how to drive the old Ford tractor, his calloused hands guiding mine on the steering wheel. "Steadiness wins the race, Charlie girl," he'd say. He was the only one who ever called me Charlie. By morning, I'd made my decision with the same steadiness Daddy had taught me. If Mama wanted me gone, I'd go, but I'd do it my way. The kitchen smelled of coffee when I came downstairs. Mama sat at the table with her reading glasses perched on her nose, scanning the Oak Ridge Gazette with the intensity of a hawk eyeing a field mouse. "Morning," I said, pouring myself coffee in the chipped mug I'd used since high school. The one with faded yellow daisies that Daddy had brought me from the hardware store one random Tuesday, just because. "Charlotte." Mama nodded without looking up. "I was thinking we could move your things to the small bedroom this weekend." "I won't be needing the small bedroom." My voice came out calmer than the churning in my stomach. That got her attention. She looked up, those steel grey eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm leaving. Today." "Don't be ridiculous." She folded the newspaper with precise creases. "Where would you go?" The question hit like a slap. She truly couldn't imagine me having options, having a life beyond these walls and her needs. I called Meredith last night, my old college roommate who'd been begging me to join her interior design business in Charleston for years. "She's got a spare room until I find my own place." "You can't just leave." I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the bitter warmth steady me, watch me. For a moment, Mama looked smaller, older, but then her jaw hardened. "What about me? Who's going to take me to my appointments? Help with the grocery shopping?" "Elaine can handle it. She's moving back, remember? To the master bedroom." I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Besides, you're perfectly capable, Mama. Your doctor said so at your last checkup. This is about the bedroom, isn't it? You're throwing a tantrum like when you were 5. This isn't about the bedroom. It's about respect. I placed my mug in the sink, rinsed it carefully. It's about the fact that I've put my life on hold for 3 years. It's about you making decisions about my future without even talking to me first. Mama sniffed. You always were too sensitive. I almost laughed. Sensitive. That's what she called it when I had feelings that inconvenienced her. I'm going to pack. I turned to leave, then paused. By the way, I'll be taking the furniture I bought and restored, and I'll need my investment back. Investment? What investment? The $30,000 I put into this house. I have receipts. Her face flushed deep red, like the peonies that grew wild at the edge of Daddy's old vegetable garden. This is my house. Your father left it to me. And I invested in it with the understanding that I'd be living here. You changed the terms, Mama. Now I need my money back so I can start over. I don't have that kind of money just sitting around. Then I guess you have a problem. I headed upstairs, my heart pounding like a blacksmith's hammer, but my step lighter than it had been in years. Behind me, I heard Mama's coffee cup slam against the saucer. Upstairs, I pulled my suitcases from the back of the closet, the same ones I'd arrived with 3 years ago, dust now coating their handles. I hadn't gone anywhere since coming home. Not one vacation, not one weekend away. Always tied to this house, to Mama's needs, to the endless projects restoring what time and neglect had worn down. I packed methodically, the way Daddy had taught me to pack a tackle box. Everything has its place, Charlie girl. That way, you know what you've got and what you're missing. What had I been missing these past years? I folded sweaters and jeans into neat stacks, tucked shoes into corners. From downstairs came the sound of Mama on the phone, her voice rising and falling like a preacher at revival. No doubt calling Elaine to complain about my betrayal. My hand stilled on a framed photograph me, and Daddy standing beside the old apple tree, my graduation cap askew, his arm around my shoulders. His eyes crinkled at the corners, proud as a rooster in a new henhouse. You can do anything, Charlie girl, he'd whispered as he hugged me that day. Don't you ever forget it. When had I forgotten? When had I become only an extension of this house, of Mama's needs? A knock at the bedroom door startled me. I've called Elaine, Mama announced, arms crossed. She says you're being unreasonable. Of course she does. I continued packing, adding the photo to my suitcase. She and Robert were counting on moving into this room. They've already given notice on their apartment. That sounds like poor planning on their part. I moved to the dresser, gathering jewelry and keepsakes. She's pregnant, Charlotte. I heard you the first dozen times. I paused, hands full of necklaces tangled like fishing line. Did you ever once consider asking me before deciding I should give up my room? Did you ever think about what I've put into this house? Into taking care of you? Mama's mouth opened and closed like a bass pulled from the creek. I shouldn't have to ask. Family helps family. Funny how that help only flows one way. I untangled a silver chain from the pile Grandma Mason's locket, the one with a tiny pressed flower inside from her wedding bouquet. Did you ask Elaine to help when Daddy was dying? When the roof was leaking? When you needed someone to drive you to physical therapy twice a week? That's different. How? How is it different? She has her own life in Atlanta, her career, her husband. I whirled around, anger bubbling up like creek water over stones. And I don't have a life. I don't matter enough to consider. Mama stepped back as if I'd raised my hand to her, though I never would, never had. That's not what I meant, she said, but her eyes slid away from mine, focusing on the half-empty dresser. Where are you taking all that furniture? That's your grandmother's dresser. This is a reproduction I bought at an antique store in Macon. Cost me $800. I ran my hand over the polished wood. You're thinking of the dresser that used to be in the guest room, which is now in the attic because it needed repairs I haven't had time to make. Her lips pressed together, creating tiny lines that radiated outward like sun rays. Lines that had deepened over the years I'd been home. You can't just walk away from your responsibilities. The word struck me like a lightning bolt. Responsibilities. Not love, not choice, not mutual support. Just a weight, an obligation. But this bolt of lightning illuminated rather than destroyed. Suddenly, I could see clearly what had been happening these 3 years show. I'd been the reliable one, the steady one, the one who would bend and yield because I always had. My chest loosened, like taking off a too-tight dress after a long day. My responsibility is to myself now. That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard you say. I zipped the suitcase closed with finality. Then I guess I'm long overdue for some selfishness. Mama followed me through the house like a shadow as I gathered my things, her commentary a constant background noise. That lamp was a gift from me and your father. You're taking the curtains? Really, Charlotte? Those bookshelves are built into the wall. You can't just remove them. I checked each item against the inventory I'd been keeping since I Ayurveda habit Daddy had instilled in me when I helped in his hardware store as a teenager. Always know what's yours, Charlie girl. That way nobody can tell you different. By noon, I'd filled my car and arranged for movers to come for the larger furniture. The house looked gap-toothed with empty spaces where my things had been. Mama stood in the kitchen, arms crossed over her chest like armor. I never thought you'd abandon me like this. The words were designed to slide between my ribs and find my heart. Once, they would have. Once, I would have unpacked everything, settled for the small bedroom, and continued the pattern we'd established. Instead, I handed her a folder. Here are the receipts for everything I've invested in the house, and a copy of our text messages where you agreed that my financial contributions were an investment, not a gift. She didn't take the folder, so I placed it on the counter beside her famous blueberry muffins, the ones she'd made this morning in a transparent attempt to sweeten me up. You can pay me back in installments if you need to, I said, but I will need that money. Or what? Her voice had turned brittle like late autumn leaves. You'll sue your own mother? I don't want it to come to that, and I didn't. Despite everything, she was still Mama. Still the woman who'd taught me to read before kindergarten, who'd braided my hair every morning until 6th grade, who'd cried with genuine happiness at my college graduation. But she was also the woman who'd consistently chosen Elaine's wants over my needs. Elaine can't afford to pay rent and help with your mortgage, Mama said, changing tactics. They're saving for the baby. That sounds like a conversation for you and Elaine to have. I picked up my purse, the vintage leather one I'd found at a flea market, and restored with Daddy's old leather working tools. I've left care instructions for your medications on the fridge. Your next doctor's appointment is on the calendar. So that's it. 39 years of being mother and daughter, and you just walk away? I paused at the back door, the same door I'd slammed as a teenager, had decorated with construction paper hearts as a child, had come through with tears streaming down my face when Tommy Beckham stood me up for prom. I'm not walking away from being your daughter. I'm walking toward being myself. Charleston welcomed me with open arms and salt-tinged air. Meredith's hug lasted a full minute, her familiar perfume bringing back memories of late-night study sessions and early morning coffee runs. Look at you! She held me at arm's length, taking in my travel-rumpled appearance. Still the prettiest Mason's sister! I laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. The only competition is a pregnant woman, so the bar is low. Come in, come in. I'll help you bring your things up. Meredith's house was exactly what I'd expected. A renovated Charleston single house with a second-floor piazza overlooking the street, decorated in jewel tones and antiques with modern accents. The guest room she led me to was painted a soft sage green that made my shoulders instantly relax. This is gorgeous, Mer. Wait till you see the studio tomorrow. We've got 3 projects going right now, and honestly, we're swamped. Your timing couldn't be better. I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted from the day's emotions and the drive. I'm really doing this, aren't I? Starting over at 40. It's about damn time. Meredith perched beside me, bumping my shoulder with hers. I've watched you fade away in that town for 3 years, becoming your mother's shadow. Had I faded? The Charlotte who left Oak Ridge this morning felt more vibrant, more real than the one who'd driven back 3 years ago. I've got a lot to figure out. Yes, you do. Starting with dinner. I've got reservations at this amazing little place down the street. Nothing fancy, you can go as you are. I glanced down at my travel clothes and raised an eyebrow. Okay, maybe change your shirt, Meredith grinned. And while you're at it, tell me everything. I want the unfiltered version, not the polite one you've been sharing on our calls. Over shrimp and grits that evening, I told her about the past 3 years, the endless projects on the house, the gradual shift from helping out temporarily to permanent unpaid caretaker, the slow erosion of my independence. How I'd convinced myself it was temporary, that once the house was fixed up, once Mama was more stable, I'd restart my own life. And all the while, Elaine was building her career in Atlanta, planning for a baby, living the life you put on hold. Meredith raised her glass of sweet tea. To fresh starts and standing your ground. I clinked my glass against hers. To finally figuring out who Charlotte Mason is without everyone else's expectations. Speaking of which, Meredith leaned forward. I wasn't kidding about needing help at the studio. We've got more design work than we can handle, and your renovation experience is exactly what we need. You can start as a consultant and see how it goes. Are you serious? You'd hire me just like that? Charlotte, honey, I've been trying to hire you for 3 years. Your before and after photos of that house are better than half the designers in Charleston. My cheeks warmed partly from Meredith's praise, partly from the realization that I'd been ignoring a potential career path while focusing on everyone else's needs. The next morning, Meredith took me to her studio, a converted warehouse space with high ceilings, exposed brick, and large windows that flooded the room with natural light. Drafting tables and computers occupied one section, fabric samples and material boards another. 3 other women worked at various stations, looking up with curious eyes as we entered. Team, this is Charlotte Mason, my college roommate, and our new design consultant. Charlotte, meet Anna, Kimberly, and Deshawn. They welcomed me warmly, and for the next hour, I toured current projects and looked through portfolios. The creative energy in the room was infectious, sparking ideas I hadn't allowed myself to pursue in years. We've got a client meeting this afternoon if you want to sit in, Meredith offered. Nothing like diving in headfirst. By the end of the week, I'd helped design a kitchen renovation, sourced period-appropriate fixtures for a historic home restoration, and discovered muscles I'd forgotten I had from moving furniture around the studio. I also hadn't heard from Mama once. Elaine called twice with updates on their plan to buy the house, Robert's negotiations with the bank, and the ongoing saga of Mama's reaction to my departure. She's still pretending she's fine, Elaine reported. You know how she gets. Too proud to admit she misses you. I did know. Mama's pride was as much a part of her as her grey eyes and her perfect pie crust. She'd rather suffer in silence than admit she'd made a mistake. 2 weeks into my new life in Charleston, a truck arrived at Meredith's house. The movers I'd hired had finally delivered my furniture from Oak Ridge, the pieces I'd restored, the antiques I'd collected, the physical manifestations of the person I'd been becoming, while thinking I was just marking time. Meredith helped me arrange them in my room, turning the temporary guest space into something that felt like mine. These pieces are stunning, Char. She ran her hand over a small writing desk I'd found at an estate sale and refinished. You really do have an eye for this work. Thanks. I positioned my grandmother's quilts on the bed, the one thing from the house in Oak Ridge that had been unquestionably mine to take. It kept me sane, I think. Restoring old things, making them beautiful again. Is that what you were trying to do with your mother's house, with your relationship with her? The question hit with unexpected force, bringing a lump to my throat. Maybe, but some things can't be fixed with sandpaper and paint. That evening, I sat at the refinished desk and wrote Mama a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter on the stationery Daddy had given me for Christmas the year before he died. I wrote about my new job, my new home, about the weight that had lifted from my shoulders, about how I loved her but couldn't be the daughter she wanted me to be anymore. When I finished, I sealed the envelope but didn't address it. Some words needed to season before they were served. Days turned into weeks. Charleston's rhythm became familiar, the church bells marking the hours, the horse-drawn carriages clip-clopping past the studio, the salty breeze that picked up each afternoon. My work with Meredith's company evolved from consulting to full partnership as my designs gained attention and clients specifically requested my services. I rented my own apartment, a small but charming place above a bookstore in the historic district. Each room I decorated was a declaration of who I was, becoming bold color choices I'd never have made in Oak Ridge, furniture arrangements that prioritized my needs rather than visitors' comfort, art that spoke to me rather than matching the couch. And then, 1 month after I'd left Oak Ridge, a familiar car pulled up outside my building. Mama stood on the sidewalk, looking smaller than I remembered, more hesitant. She wore her good church dress and clutched her handbag like it might try to escape. I watched from my window, heart hammering. For a moment, I considered not answering when she knocked, considered the clean break I'd been making, the boundaries I'd been establishing. But she was still Mama. I buzzed her in and waited by my open door as she climbed the stairs, one hand gripping the railing, her breathing more labored than I remembered. Charlotte. She nodded, as if we'd seen each other yesterday instead of a month ago. Mama, come in. She entered cautiously, eyes widening as she took in my new space, the bold teal accent wall, the mismatched but harmonious furniture, the large windows that flooded the room with light. It's colourful, she said, which from Mama was neither compliment nor criticism, merely observation. Would you like some tea? I just made a pitcher of sweet tea. That would be nice. I busied myself in the kitchen, giving us both a moment to adjust to this new dynamic. When I returned with 2 glasses, Mama was examining my latest restoration projector rocking chair I'd found at a local flea market. This looks like your grandmother's chair, she said. It's similar. That one's still in your attic. She nodded, running her fingers over the half-stripped arm. You always knack for bringing old things back to life, like your daddy. The comparison to Dadya, rare compliment from Mama, caught me off guard. I handed her the tea and gestured to the couch. Have a seat. Did Elaine drive you? No, I drove myself. Elaine doesn't know I'm here. She settled onto the couch, back straight as always. She and Robert bought the house. The papers are all signed. That's good. I'm glad it worked out. Mama set her tea down untouched. They gave me a check for your money. All of it. She reached into her handbag and pulled out an envelope. $30,000, just like you asked. I took the envelope, surprised by the weight of it in my hand. Not the physical weight, but the emotional one, the acknowledgement it represented. Thank you. Mama nodded, then looked around the apartment again, taking in the details. You've done well for yourself in just a month. I had a foundation to build on, and good friends. Yes, Meredith, you always did talk about her. Mama smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her dress. Your sister is due in 4 months. A girl. I know, she told me. They're naming her Elizabeth, after Grandma. She wants you to help with the nursery, says no one else has your eye for design. Mama's tone suggested she was quoting directly. I'd like that. The silence stretched between us, decades of unspoken words filling the space. Finally, Mama spoke. I shouldn't have told you to leave. Coming from Mama, it was as close to an apology as I'd ever heard. No, you shouldn't have. But if I hadn't, she gestured around the apartment. Would you have found all this? It was a good question. Would I have continued in the same pattern indefinitely? Putting my own dreams aside, convincing myself it was temporary, letting my talents rust like an old tractor left in the rain? Maybe not, I admitted. But there could have been a middle path. Mama picked up her tea, took a small sip. I'm not good at middle paths, Charlotte. Never have been. This was true. Mama saw the world in sharp contrasts, right and wrong, in or out, her way or the highway. It was what made her a respected figure in Oakridge and a difficult mother to please. I've been thinking about what your daddy would say about all this. She set the glass down carefully on a coaster. He always said you had gumption hidden under all that politeness. I smiled, hearing Daddy's voice in the word gumption one of his highest compliments. He also said I was too hard on you. Mama's admission came reluctantly, like water from a rusty spigot. That I pushed you because you could handle it, and let Elaine slide because she couldn't. I hadn't known this. Hadn't known Daddy had seen it too. Had tried in his quiet way to balance Mama's favoritism. Why did you come today, Mama? She squared her shoulders. To bring you your money. To see where you're living now. To make sure you're all right. And am I? All right? Her eyes met mine, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in years. You look more like yourself than you have since before your daddy died. You've got his spark back in your eyes. It was, perhaps, the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me. I'm not coming back to Oakridge, I said gently. Not to live. I know that. She pursed her lips. But will you visit? Meet your niece when she comes? Maybe help Elaine with the nursery like she asked. I nodded. I will, on my terms, when I can fit it into my schedule here. Your work is important, Mama said, and it wasn't a question. Yes, it is. Your daddy would be proud. She stood, smoothing her dress once more. I should head back before it gets dark. My night vision isn't what it used to be. I walked her to the door. This woman who had shaped so much of my life with her expectations and demands, who had pushed me away and, in doing so, had inadvertently pushed me toward myself. You could stay the night, I offered. I have a guest room. For a moment, I thought she might accept, might cross this new threshold with me, but old habits die hard. I should get back. Elaine is coming for dinner, and you know how she gets if plans change last minute. Mama adjusted her purse strap. But maybe next time? Next time. A promise, or at least a possibility. Drive safe, Mama. I watched from my window as she got into her car, checked her mirrors with the same methodical precision she applied to everything, and pulled away from the curb. Only when she'd turned the corner did I realize I was still holding the envelope with the check. $30,000. The price of my freedom, or the value of my investment. Both, perhaps. 3 months later, I stood in what had once been my bedroom in Oak Ridge, now transformed into a nursery for baby Elizabeth. The walls were a soft lavender Elaine's choice, but everything else bore my touch. The rocking chair I'd rescued from Mama's attic and restored to its original beauty. The changing table I'd designed and commissioned from a local craftsman in Charleston. The hand-painted mural of blooming magnolias that covered one wall, each petal detailed with the patience Daddy had taught me. It's perfect, Elaine said, one hand resting on her rounded belly. Better than anything I could have imagined. Just wait until you see what's coming for the baby shower. I adjusted a picture frame on the Waller family photo from 20 years ago. All of us together at Christmas. Daddy still healthy and strong. You're still coming, right? 2 weeks from Saturday? Wouldn't miss it. Downstairs, I could hear Mama in the kitchen, preparing lunch with the same focus she'd always brought to cooking. Some things hadn't changed. She still expected Sunday dinners when I visited, still folded napkins into perfect triangles, still believed her way was the right way to load a dishwasher. But other things had shifted, like tectonic plates moving imperceptibly beneath the surface. She asked about my work now, showed genuine interest in my projects. She'd even started following my design company's social media page, leaving occasionally baffling but well-intentioned comments on project photos. And I had changed too. Grown into myself like a plant finally given proper light and space, spreading roots in Charleston while maintaining connections to Oak Ridge, finding the balance I'd been missing for so long. I'm going to check on Mama, Elaine said, leaving me alone in the nursery. I ran my hand over the crib rail, thinking about the baby who would sleep here soon. Who would grow up in this house as I had, but in a different world, with different expectations? A little girl who would know her Aunt Charlotte, not as the dutiful daughter who sacrificed everything, but as the successful designer who visited from Charleston, who brought interesting gifts and stories, who had built her own life on her own terms. Steadiness wins the race, Charlie, girl, I whispered, hearing Daddy's voice in my memory. He'd been right, as he so often was. Not the steadiness of standing still, but the steadiness of moving forward with purpose. One foot in front of the other, even when the path led away from the familiar and into the unknown. Outside the window, the old apple tree still stood in the backyard, gnarled but strong, preparing for another season of blossoms and fruit. Like the tree, I'd weathered storms and seasons, bent but never broken. And now, finally, I was blooming where I'd chosen to be planted.